Welcome back to Talking Story. My name is John Minton, and I am joined today with the other half of my BookTube bromance, my brother from the north, Brian Bell from BellTube. Let me tell you, I'm full stop. If anybody out there is here and has not subscribed to BellTube, let me lay this out for you. This is BookTube. This is BookTube here, fantasy, sci-fi, BookTube here. We're all kind of doing what we do. And then here's Brian operating so high above us that he frequently has to fight nosebleeds from the altitude. That's if you're not subscribed yet, that is exactly what you're missing. Brian, how are you, my friend?
I'm awesome. This is a total blast. Anytime we get together, man, it's we just relate in every way possible. So I'm doing great. Thanks for doing this. Totally having a blast.
I tell you, you are my brother that got dropped off at the fire station or something.
Seriously, but I mean, if this is, I believe this to be the case, but if this is true, why did I end up at the wall? Because it's minus 35 here in a few months.
Oh my God.
I want to know what I did as an infant that, that there was two children and one gets to go to King's Landing and one has to go to the wall and I get sent to the wall. Wait a minute.
I got a silver spoon up my butt in this story. I don't know if I like that either.
Okay,
but I'm not going to the wall.
Maybe you went to the Tully place, right? Maybe you're the Riverlands.
I'll go with Riverlands.
You'll go to the Riverlands.
That's nice and green. I like it.
It's no, but this I got the White Walkers. I've got ice. No girls.
No girl. What about the White Walker
wildlings?
Girls?
Well, the wildlings.
The wildlings. You know nothing, Brian Bell.
That gosh, this is starting to add up so much now. Now I understand my lack of knowledge of anything.
I called you here today, and you have accepted this mission. Look, this all started. I sent Brian a book for his birthday. I sent Brian because I know you're a comics fan. You love the hero's journey all the way going back from when you first started reading. So I sent you book one of kind of a heroes series that I love. Jonathan Mayberry, the Joe Ledger series, Patient Zero, right there. And you turned around and did the same for me. You sent me one of your favorite hero series. This is book one, Sandman Slim, by Richard Kadrey, in the Sandman Slim series. And so it's like, look, let's read one of each other's fave heroes, and we'll get together and we'll talk about heroes and all kind of stuff. What is it, Brian? When did you first? Were you super young when you started with comics? When did you really start getting into heroes?
Yeah, for sure. I was probably about 7 or 8 years old. And I lived a half a block from a little mini grocery store. Today would be like a 7-Eleven or something like that. But back then, here in Minneapolis, it was called Tom Thumb. And they had the comic rack. And you probably know what
spinner.
They had the spinner. And I just needed to get every Spider-Man possible. And that went into the Avengers, and that went into Doctor Strange, and that went into all of the Marvel universe. So I'm going to say when I was about 7 or 8, I just absolutely fell in love with comics because, when we were kids, cartoons were something for Saturday morning for they were on for 2 or 3 hours and that's it. There was no Cartoon Network, certainly no cable, no internet, no nothing. So comics was just my lifeblood. I just absolutely loved it. And so that's about when.
What do you think? I was thinking today, and my story's kind of the same. I think I was right around the same age, and I got into Batman and Flash, and kind of the other side of the street.
You're on the DC side, yeah.
I'm on the DC side, but I did get into some Marvel. But it's I was wondering what drew me in? Why did this driving need for heroes? I could not stop once I get into comics, and I buy comics to this day.
Yeah,
I've never been able to stop.
The only reason I stopped is probably, I don't know, maybe about 15 years ago when I realized I needed reading glasses to read my comic books. And I said, all right, Brian, That's it. I mean, you're kicked out of the comic club at that point. But
Don't you use reading glasses to read your regular books though? And
I
stuff?
do, but at the time I wasn't reading all that much in terms of fiction novels. At the time I was just mostly working, and from time to time I would pick up comics on comic book day, and that would just be a good break for me. And I just remember getting so frustrated that I couldn't read it. And then they were getting to like $5 a comic, $6 a comic. And you and I remember when they were 40 cents. And
I remember when they were a quarter.
Yeah. And I remember when they went to $1 and I was just pissed. It's like $1 for a comic book. You got to be kidding me. So I don't know. I guess I fell out of it a little bit, but I've never thrown them away. So I've had my family was in the packaging business. This is just how I ended up inventing, my Bell Flask stuff, is because I've had, a lifetime of exposure to packaging. Well, cool. I used those, plastic polyester bags and sealed them up probably in the late 80s, and they've been sealed. I probably have 10, at least 10, maybe 12 full comic boxes of sealed comics from the 70s and 80s and maybe early 90s hanging out. But I loved it. I loved the excitement of it. Like just the I don't know. I think when I was a kid, I thought that magic was real and superpowers could be real. And unless someone absolutely proves to me that I'm wrong, I want to believe it. So this is my outlet for it.
Absolutely. I mean, I totally agree. There's complete magic in the world if you look around and you pay attention and you see it. I think for me at that time, like I had some family upheaval at the time, like when I was 7, 8. And the thing I love about comics is they're continuity driven. So I could depend on my comics. I would come back to my favorite titles month after month after month, and it would be the same faces, the same storylines, the same thing going on, the same characters to follow. When I was maybe having some uncertainty in my life.
I can see how that would absolutely be in terms of like growing up, like a consistent factor, something that you could, be reliably depending that is going to show up for you. And they always did every single month. So, and then sometimes they'd really do it where, hey, Spider-Man's selling great, so let's have 2 different Spider-Man series coming out in the same month, and you double your roll, or 3,
or 7,
right?
Dude, if you're into Spider-Man, that's big money.
You had the Amazing Spider-Man, you had the Spectacular Spider-Man. I think you had, there was another one. There might have been just Spider-Man. At some point, I know they tried to do a Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man. They ran out a lot of different series.
Yeah, that's like when I was hardcore buying too. The last time I was hardcore buying, like to do, Batman is my guy. Yeah. So same thing, like
Detective Comics. And,
oh my God, Batman, Detective Comics.
Brave and the
Bold.
Bold.
And then you get to the whole Bat family.
Yeah.
I need to find out what's going on with Nightwing, and it's never ending.
Do you remember they had, and I own it, the Joker had his own series? Yeah, I have Joker number 1. Like the first time Joker ever got his series.
Really?
I have Joker 1 somewhere around here. Yeah.
Oh my God. You're sitting on some cash, brother.
Right? Maybe I can get a new computer finally and fix this light problem.
There you go.
I'm going to show it to a pawn store with like a pickup truck full of old comic books and say, hey, you got like a 2-year-old Mac Power book in it behind the glass anywhere?
It's a trade. So Heroes for you, did it give you a bit of kind of an example for moral compass? Like, I know I always kind of hung myself from stories about how I should be and how I should grow up and what I wanted to be. I always saw myself as the hero of the story, so I wanted to emulate that as much as possible.
Yes, for the most part. I would say that I was rooting for the heroes pretty much the entire time. Probably, I'm going to say honestly, until I was probably in high school and maybe met a girl that didn't like me back. And then I started to root for the villains. That could be that could have happened once or twice, I think.
Did you discover anti-heroes at that point?
It might have been, where they're just like,
it all comes back to girls, right? For us, like, I'm anti-heroes. You get into them because the girls love the bad guy. The girls love the bad boys.
Yeah, and like we were talking about the other night, when we were growing up and reading these stories, whether it be in comic books or fiction or whatever, a lot of girls just didn't do that. That just wasn't their thing back then.
Yeah.
And so now we're just like watching these girls line up to go to a Marvel movie, or to get into a D&D game. And we are just, I mean, folks, I'm telling you, if you could have told us, that young Brian and young John back in 5th to 8th grade, or even all the way up to 12th grade, that would be the future, neither one of us would have believed you ever. No. We would have thought we went to some bizarro universe where, the prom queen is all of a sudden, a barbarian in Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah.
It's so far from reality, but yeah.
I mean, not just girls, but it was for like no one but me, basically, was reading.
Yeah. I mean, most of the athletes that I grew up with, you weren't into that. You were totally a nerd if you were reading comic books. And this is really kind of the beginnings of the personal computer. So I had a computer when I was about 13. I got really lucky. My parents got me a computer, and that was just a really nerdy thing to have. Now, mind you, the monitor was completely green, or you could select amber if you wanted an amber screen, but those were your choices, green or amber. It was.
But hey, for the hero discussion, let me throw this at you and see if you remember this. The personal computing kind of brought in gaming, which meant we could be the hero.
Yeah.
Let me throw this out there and see if you played this like I played this, because I love heroes. Zork.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, yeah, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And so for those of you who are unaware, Zork is a text-based adventure game where instead of like turning your gaming system on and seeing a room, you're reading about a 3 or 4 sentence paragraph that describes the room to you. And you have some limited commands, what you could do. If you wanted to go north, you could hit N and hit enter, and you're going to go north. If it says you see a ghost, you can type in kill ghost, and your sword might swing at a ghost. Or you can pick, if it says you see a bronze key, get key, and you hit enter, and it picks up the key. So
it was like a mystery. You got you all those times of reading comics and imagining myself as the hero, kind of putting a moral compass in myself of what I would be, what I want to be, that I could now make the decisions. And if you make the right decisions, the game will go forward. And I got to tell you, there's a lot of times I was stuck in that game.
Oh my God. I don't know that I ever finished it.
Oh, that was the...
I don't know that. I don't think hardly any of those text-based games I ever finished it. Yeah. And talk about like getting frustrated and want to be an anti-hero, because... I would like, go in circles and circles and circles around these, game worlds, but not ever really advance the game.
I gotta say, forget any hero. I would go full villain. I would type in the most evil commands because I was so frustrated.
I don't understand that. Yeah.
It would never do it. It would never let me go that way.
Yeah.
So, okay, moving forward in our journey of heroes, when did you first start picking up like prose or things like that and going, this is kind of my jam? Like I'm even though I'm moving from comics into something a little bit more dense.
Yeah, probably around 10 or 11 is where I found Piers Anthony at the B. Dalton bookstore. And Piers Anthony basically took up most of the shelf, and it was targeted right at that kind of age where you've got this middle grade kind of fantasy stuff. And when I was in, I want to say like 4th or 5th grade, they threw me into a program that they had called Junior Great Books. And these were for kids that were quite a bit ahead of the rest of their class in their reading comprehension. And they gave us sort of like abridged versions of books that you'd be reading later on in high school. But they did it like in 5th grade, and I hated those books. And they totally turned me off to reading.
Really?
But I found at the same time, these books at a B. Dalton that had like dragons on the book cover. And talk about just a total shift, because I would have gone from somebody that was good at reading according to teachers to somebody who absolutely loved reading. Because wait a minute, there's dragons on this. There's a wizard. And how do I know that? Because he's got a wizard's hat and he's pointing a staff and there's fire coming out, right? I know there's something in this book that's going to be more interesting than what they have me reading in 5th grade. And so about then is like, we talk about being, following the heroes and following whether they're either superheroes or, I would consider that to be the comic side, but where we get the good wizards and the good sorcerers and the good fighters and just all the cool races that we know about in fantasy. All of that really happened for me right about 10, 11, 12 years old, and never looked back since, because I didn't even know there was a genre like that. Like I saw the cartoon The Hobbit way before I ever read the book The Hobbit. I didn't even know it was a book.
Oh, I saw, the Ralph Bashki cartoon with Orson Bean as the voice of Bilbo, and it was huge for me.
That to me was just completely life-changing. Where I saw a cartoon, but it was also about just this cool stuff. I just loved King Arthur.
Me too.
When the movie Excalibur came out, I think I was like maybe 11 when that came out, and we were one of the first people on our block to have HBO. And so Excalibur came out, like all the kids in the neighborhood were over my house watching that. And I was just, and it's funny because if you watch it now, it's it's not for 11-year-olds.
No, I was going to say, like, what scenes were you watching?
All of them,
Oh, wow.
But it's so funny when you're a kid, you don't care. Like, I didn't care about like the sex scenes or any of that. I was like, what's Merlin going to do next? Yes. Ooh, he's pulling this crazy fog out of the mist. And King Arthur's got Excalibur, and there's this, Lady of the Lake, that they're throwing, the sword to. And I was just like, just the gleaming of that sword just absolutely compelled me to read more, because that was an anomaly in terms of movies, where now, the Marvel Cinematic Universe, DC Extended Universe, there's a million movies. Dungeons and Dragons has their own movie. It's a whole deal. It's its own genre. But when Excalibur came out, or even just a handful of few others, there were anomalies. And if you clung on to that, the only way you were going to get your fix, so to speak, is through fiction novels, because that's the only other place for them.
Yeah. I remember the Hobbit cartoon, and I've been reading comics, and I've been getting heroes in my cartoons. We had Super Friends and other things. And like you say, but like when that cartoon hit me, I was like, wow, that was my introduction to high fantasy, Middle Earth fantasy world, right? And it was like, it was mind expanding to me, right? Because up until then, the superheroes and all the things I've been reading and taking place really firmly entrenched in our world.
Yeah. And honestly, like, nobody that's younger than us probably watched the Super Friends, but they weren't exactly deep plots. You know, I mean, it was like the Joker leaving a banana peel for, Batman to slip on, and that's about as far as it went.
I bet they don't hold up well.
They don't. I mean, they were basically cartoons to sell us lunch boxes. It was all
and they did.
Oh, absolutely. It was a merch play. That's how I learned how to do everything.
Absolutely.
Watching merch sales as
before we go too much further, I got this look.
Yeah.
I got to throw this out there, because this is how much Nicole Williamson's portrayal of Merlin meant to me in John Borman's Excalibur, right?
Yeah.
You ready?
Yeah.
You ready for this? I know it to this day. Ananathrak usvoth bethed doth vel vienve. I still know the spell.
It's close.
The spell of making for Merlin. I probably butchered it.
I think you're close. I think you're
close.
You might have it.
Doth vel vienve. If I don't have it, I'm close.
That sounds, I'm going to say you got it, because it's not like I know. So,
it's, close enough for old guys.
Right? Wouldn't that be great if it was just like, my wife forgot to do the, laundry and my dinner sucks, just written backwards or something that.
Make me pot roast.
Right. It's just some pissed off screenwriter. It's just like, looks at it. holds it up in a mirror. He goes, I don't know, how would I phonetically say this? Yeah,
there you go. Nicole Williamson was amazing.
That's impressive that you can remember that,
dude. So. I'm a nerd, man. I'm a geek from way back. Yeah. My cred's good for nerds.
Excellent.
Absolutely. So, okay. So, all right. Then, look, we get a little older. We're finding movies like Excalibur, and we're starting to find books. Hit me up with some of your... Now, I know Sandman Slim. We'll get to these books that we swap back and forth here in a little bit. I'm just kind of digging, hanging out, and talking heroes.
Yeah.
So, like, what are some of the series, some of your fave series that you can think back on? It's like, man, and I know you're into the lit RPG. There's a lot of hero's journey, hero-centric stuff in that.
Yeah. So, I mean, you hit the nail on the head. I mean, if we're talking in the relatively recent past, say the last 10 to 12 years, lit RPG to me is the best hero's journey, because that's entirely what it is. It's, someone is a stranger in a strange land that all of a sudden, it doesn't matter how much money you make anymore. It's what kind of skills you can acquire, how quickly you can do them, and what paths you want to take. Because in lit RPG, there's no, hey, you're not, 6'10", so you can't be a basketball player, right? I mean, there's no limitations in lit RPG. Really, whatever you do enough of, your skill level improves. So for sure, lit RPG is a big deal. I'd say going back, way further from that, it's going to be typical hero's journey quest types of stuff where, a chosen one trope is generally kind of how it works. It resonated really well for me because I wanted to be that kid. I wanted to be that kid that finds out, wait a minute, your parents, I mean, I love my parents, but if they would have come in and said, hey, the king had you dropped off here for your own protection, and now the resident sorcerer is going to teach you about your hidden abilities. Sign me up. I said, Mom, Dad, I'll see you never.
I knew it.
Yeah,
I knew it. I knew you guys were shills. I knew you weren't my real parents.
That's right. And I look at my little sister. I'm out of here, man. I'm never babysitting you again. And thanks for telling Dad I took the beer. So,
oh my God.
Yeah.
Little sisters always sell you out.
Yeah.
But this is the cool thing, that this is why I love the chosen one trope, and it doesn't get old for me, right? It can always be done a little bit different. It doesn't get old for me because, look, you're called above your station by destiny.
Yeah.
You're called to be a hero. And like you say, you're going to progress. You're going to get skills. All that stuff will come to you. But what you have to be called, to be a hero, is you have to know right from wrong and have a good heart. That's never gets old for me. And that's what I always wanted to... That's where I always wanted to come in baseline. That's why this stuff just continues to speak to me throughout my entire life.
Yeah. And I think that, and we'll talk more about anti-heroes, but I think most of the anti-heroes started as heroes, and then they, in their mind, and then they just kind of got fed up with, well, the hero's way never seems to work because the villains always find a way to get past, the limitations of the hero. So let me be hero plus and go slightly over the line that our traditional heroes won't go, and I'll deal with the moral consequence from that. Yeah, but they're not out there, killing innocent people because they're villains.
They're not villains. But it's like I think the older we get, I'm somewhat drawn to anti-heroes because, like you say, they want to be a hero plus because they're weighted down with experience and life and baggage just enough to twist them in a way to make them push the boundaries a little bit, and that gray area becomes recognizable to us that have put a few mileage, a few years worth of mileage on ourselves, right?
Absolutely. I mean, I think it's a sense of frustration and maybe like old man screaming at the clouds to some degree, but these guys actually have power to do something about it. And this is where you'll get characters like in comic books like Red Hood that all of a sudden gets tired of Joker just getting thrown into Arkham Asylum, over and over and over again, and decides, you know what, I'm going to just end this guy. Because what's the point? What are we doing here?
But to my point, like what a Journey Red Hood had, no spoilers, but it's like he went through a lot to get to that point.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely. No spoilers though, folks. But
yeah. We'll keep it. So, all right. So kind of what we switched back and forward. Let's get to it.
Sure.
What kind of anti-heroes? I feel like.
Yeah. I mean, I think that even like my experience as a nightclub owner for as long as I was has given me this sense of anti-hero myself, because I definitely went in with, rose-colored glasses and this is going to be rainbows and sunshines and this and that. And it doesn't take too many all-out bar fights or just craziness that goes on to change your perceptions of it. And if you do it for like, for me, it was almost 16, years, taking no time off at all, it just becomes, you're that grizzled old cop saying, I was 2 days away from retirement and they're bringing me back, into this. That's kind of how I felt towards the end, where it was almost anti-hero, where, I've had people, no lie. And it's like the first time someone said, I'm going to get you after work. It was like, it was a little scary. And I'd be like, okay, security is going to walk me to my car. Whereas when I got to the end of my tenure there, it was like, I'm going to, because we, have to kick drunks out, all the time. It's just how, if you want to have a nightclub and you don't want anybody so drunk they get kicked out, you might as well never open, because then you're not selling enough and the business model doesn't work. But so by the end of my tenure, John, I was like, they're like, I'm going to come back and shoot up this place and shoot you. And I'd be like, hey, I get here at like 10:30 tomorrow morning. If you want to come on down, I'll be here. I'm
going to wait for you outside. I'm going to kick you. The line forms on the left.
Yeah, exactly. And you get to that kind of anti-hero mentality in that type of rough exposure, then I can see cops getting into that as well.
Oh, of course.
After a while, where they come in, all fresh and they want to clean up the streets and be, these heroes that we admire. And after a number of years or a number of encounters or experiences, they just have to
clean up. They still want to clean up the streets, but they're willing to go just a bit further to get it done. Right.
And they're less polite about it.
Oh, yeah. For sure. So I hit you up for your birthday with Patient Zero.
Yeah.
Overall, what did you think? Was it a hit for you?
I'm going to show the book again just in case anybody came in late. Patient Zero, Jonathan Mayberry, absolutely was a hit, and a surprising hit. And here's the thing. Like, you had mentioned to me that this was sort of like a supernatural Tom Clancy-ish type of a story. I've never read any Tom Clancy. I've never read any government thrillers before. I am so unaware of that genre that it's scary. My brother-in-law, that's all he reads, is all of those. I think it's like Brad Thor might be one of those authors in that genre.
It's a huge market.
It's gigantic. My only thing that's even close to that is maybe some legal thrillers that I read a long, long time ago. I know there's one author in particular, I can't remember off the top of my head, that writes a lot of those legal thrillers. Is it John Grisham, maybe?
Yeah, John Grisham.
But I've never really read military thrillers. I didn't read any Tom Clancy, none of it. So when you pitched this to me, it was something that I've never really read before. And then you said, and they're going after zombies. I am not a zombie guy. If you could give me...
So I did the worst job selling it. Is it possible?
By far the worst, people. Not even close. A genre I'm unaware of, on a backlog booktubers TBR. Okay, it's not like I'm looking and trying to figure out what books to read. I got a stack as big as yours. And then, by the way, the big bads are going to be these zombies who I don't like.
Happy birthday!
Exactly. Happy birthday! Here's something we know you'll really not like. What was that commercial ad? Now here's something you'll really like. So I went in thinking to myself, okay, well, here's the deal. Even if I don't like the characters, even if I don't really like the genre, John knows enough about books that he wouldn't be sending me something if at least it wasn't a good book. So I know that there's going to be something in here that I like. And it took me all of maybe one chapter to get into it and go, oh, I like this a lot. This is really, really cool. And for me, like, I don't know why zombies have been like something that I'm just not into, because if you look at every zombie story, there's generally a mastermind behind the zombies, right? Unless it's just a pure, monster movie flick that the zombies rise from the dead because the moon is full.
Right, that's all you need to know, yeah.
Right. There's generally an intelligence that's using these zombies as, pieces on the playing field. And as I got into Patient Zero, and even the other part is, oh my God, I'm gonna give you the trifecta of badness. even the name of the book I didn't like. Patient Zero. Because I don't like medical horror. That scares the shit out of me. Like, it's like, if there's a video game where you like wake up and you're strapped to the gurney and, there's people that are going to be doing surgeries, that would scare the crap out of me. So it's like, we're calling it Patient Zero. There's these zombies coming through the book. I'm going to show the book again just in case. So there's like the hand is coming through the book. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to hate this. And
you're not a big horror fan, right?
Not at all. Okay, not at all. So I'm one step up. I'm one step up from Philip Chase when it comes
zero. I'm batting zero at this point.
You literally couldn't have sent me anything that I would not have bought myself ever. You literally picked, if you went over to the Barnes and Noble, said, pick the least likely book in this entire fantasy sci-fi horror section, point to me the least one you would never buy on your own, 100% Patient Zero would have been the last book that I picked up. And see, folks, this is why you have to break out of habits and you have to break out of your comfort zone, because I totally loved this book. I love the hero. He's an anti-hero. I totally dig this guy. He's been there, done it, got the t-shirt. And it's like, I didn't know, because you had been referring to it as both Patient Zero and as Joe Ledger 1. So I had to figure, okay, this isn't a standalone. I mean, it can be read as standalone. I mean, there's no cliffhanger here at the end where, the story isn't done, but there's enough to go, oh, there's going to be a book too. So now I'm vested in Joe Ledger. I'm absolutely going to be reading the next book. Hopefully it's not called Patient 1.
No. The next book is called The Dragon Factory.
Now we're on to something. You guys, if you would have told me that this was called The Dragon Factory, I'm in. That's it. Okay, cool.
And it's you get some alternate history strands because the big bad is kind of like carrying on experimentations begun by the Nazis, and it's awesome. The world expands. It gets so much better. But Joe Ledger, like, what a great hero, right? Born in tragedy.
Yeah. Did they talk about his being born yet? I don't think so.
No, I mean, well, I kind of born in tragedy. Like, something happens to him when he was a young man that kind of really tweaks him. I don't know if gets into that.
Yeah, just a tiny bit with the girlfriend.
Right.
But yeah, not as deep as I'm sure that it's going to go.
Oh, it's going to go much deeper about what it does to him. And
right. But no, super cool book. I love the fact that, his superpower is basically he's got different dimensions to himself that kind of come out subconsciously in times where he best can use them. So, he becomes, this invincible warrior, and he doesn't have superpowers. So he's definitely going to be different than the books, that I sent you, but he's a quote unquote normal human being with a very strongly developed set of skills in terms of both fighting and in investigating and in observation and in leadership and command. And he's really picked up just to the nth degree level, these skill sets that bring him to where we start in Patient Zero. Yeah, huge fan, and I can't thank you enough for it, because again, I would never have bought this book, and I'd be so unknown to it.
Here's what I was thinking, man. I know it's no secret
Yeah.
Like you have bent your brain wrapping it around some heavy, dense material lately.
Yeah.
And I thought, dude, this guy needs he needs a Snicker bar read.
Oh,
He
yeah.
needs a popcorn read.
Yeah.
He needs just an all adrenaline action type of read. And that's what this is. It's just a fun, and here's the other thing that I love about Jonathan Mayberry, who writes the Joe Ledger series and other things. He started as a journalist. That's what he studied to be. So his research into what's going wrong and these supernatural elements that are creeping into our world, completely feasible.
Yeah, he does. I mean, yeah, there's nothing in here outside of maybe the specific science itself that is, pushing on the science fiction, but the motivations for all of it is exactly what you would find from an investigative journalist. Who benefits, those types of questions when things are going awry, to whose benefit is this really for? And and it's interesting that you mentioned him, because I know you've interviewed him before on the Artist Journey show that you do on Talking Story. I'm going to go back and watch that interview again now.
Dude, what a cool guy.
That I've read this book, because I remember watching it, because I watch all of the Talking Story videos, but there's a different sense, I think, of investment in your attention to a particular interview. If you've not read anything from that author before.
Oh, sure.
You're just going to have a different, level of interest. Now I'm far more interested. Now I'm interested into what he has to say.
Yeah.
Whereas before I was watching it for whatever you were going to say.
Oh,
so,
God. No, that's, that I'm
talk
sure.
Talk about a disappointment.
I was going to say, I'm sure it'll be much more interesting now. So look, you firmly hit the nail on the head for me.
Really?
Awesome. Oh, dude, so much so.
I'm glad.
That I think, like, maybe more than a decade ago, I read this. Like,
no way.
Yes, when I was reading this, I was like, I swear, I think I've read this. And I never got deeper into the series. And now I'm like, oh my God. 10 years ago, I was deep into theater. I would maybe pick a book up if I had a weekend off. Yeah. And then I wouldn't have another weekend off for 2 or 3 years, right?
Yeah.
And all I read was scripts and everything else.
Sure.
So
and you're not reading in your spare time at that point.
Sure. There wasn't
no spare time. Right.
Yeah, what a spare time. So that was why comics were so great, because it would take me 10 minutes.
Right.
So I'm almost positive I picked this up myself, and now you've brought it back around.
All right.
And I can't wait to get into the whole.
Yeah.
I can't wait to blow through the whole series.
Yeah.
So that's how firmly you know me, and you got it so perfectly right.
Wow, my time machine brain was thinking John Minton 10 years ago read this, and he needs a refresher course.
And I didn't remember. It just seemed it seemed familiar. I didn't remember certain things, but it's like, look, what a great story. Like, if I were to say to you, okay, Joe Ledger, it's like, think about if Harry Dresden had no powers and he was in SEAL Team 6.
Right.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. That's pretty much what you get. Yeah.
Kind of gives you a vibe. This would be like, for me, I think I said, like, think if, like, John Constantine and you mash Dante's Inferno, you mash some weird stuff together and you throw it in a Cuisinart.
Yeah.
It's a little bit of the Punisher, like, and look, it took me right back to Hollywood. Like, there was so many places. It's like, yep. Oh, it's Coldwater Canyon. Yeah, it's Melrose. Yep. Oh, yeah, that's in Beverly Hills. Like, I knew exactly where they were. I knew exactly the vibe of everything's artifice, everything's plastic surgery and entertainment business. It's all about the artifice. And you throw in the only human that has been sent down to hell before they die, coming back up to right a wrong and go on a vengeance spree.
Right.
And as he goes on this spree, the world starts to unfold before you, and you start to see all the things that are happening. And this war between good and evil, classically, as you would think about in the Judeo-Christian books and stories, you start to see are real and are happening, and you're thrown right into the middle of it. And I love absolutely every bit of that.
Yeah,
every bit of that.
I'm so glad to hear that, because for it, much like Dresden, it opens up as the series goes on. Dresden Stormfront starts pretty narrow in scope. It's this detective noir wizard for hire guy. And, over the course of the first 2 or 3 books, maybe book 4, the cast opens up. But as you move through that series, as you know, just the world building opens up. All these different fey courts open up, and different parts of the universe and cosmic beings start to come into play.
Yeah.
And the same happens with the Sandman Slim series. And I'm just really, really glad that you liked it, because he has such a different mentality than Harry Dresden. You know, and I know at the time you were thinking about picking up an urban fantasy series, and you had originally been thinking about Alex Verus, which I am a huge fan of. You know, I think there's 12 Alex Verus books. I've read them all. And I think that it kind of like in my brain, from hero to anti-hero, it goes like Dresden is kind of middle level, and then Alex Verus is a little bit more rougher around the edges than Harry Dresden. And then you get, you know, James Starks, aka Sandman Slim, who's seen some shit.
Oh man. No, he's been through some. When he hits hell, the first thing he does, his job is he becomes a gladiator in hell. It's a monster that kills monsters. Yeah. And then as this thing starts to unfold, it's like you start to realize, okay, this is how he got away with this. This is how he was able to live through that. Yeah. And look, I had never read Richard Kadrey, but I have another book of his downstairs that makes me want to pick it up right away.
Is that the Dead Take the A Train?
Yes.
So yeah, he did that with Cass Caw, and I haven't read it yet, but that's going to fall more into the cosmic horror side of things, which I know you like.
Love it.
Yeah,
love it.
That would be
love it so much that soon, hopefully,
the Family Minton.
The Family Minton project will be out there. It has a lot to do with that. But
is that anything like the Alan Parsons project, by the way?
Oh, that's a deep cut. That's a deep cut. Only I get that, I bet.
I know. Well, hey, you said Cuisinart earlier. So
is that not around anymore?
I think people probably call them, a ninja or a blender or a Vitamix or something like that. But I Cuisinart's a brand, but the way that we use it is like as a blender, in our brains. But
discovering those, when I first discovered those, they're good for one thing, and that's making margaritas.
Margaritas and daiquiris, and absolutely. Yeah. I never made food in those.
Oh, good God. A smoothie? What the heck was that? That's something you give old people that don't have teeth.
I mean, a smoothie's got, or rum in it, and then you're good. Exactly. Get a rum and an umbrella for your glass, and you're good to go. Strawberry daiquiris.
When you were thinking of this to send to me, which was just such a home run, I absolutely home run. I love horror. I love an anti-hero. I love the beginning of a series that I haven't started, or I should have gotten into way long ago.
Yeah.
Was there something else that you're like, okay, this or maybe this, but you were choosing between a couple things to see me? Because I had a plan B for you.
There was a couple. Well, once you mentioned Alex Verus, I was okay. Well, I was like, all right, then it's between these two. Depending on the person, would be which one that I would go with. So for you, like, you're not a shirking violet. Is that a term? Is that shrinking violet? Yes, you can handle this. So I figured you could take that. I thought about Alex Verus. I thought about the Iron Druid series by Kevin Hearn.
I've read, I think, the first 5 or 6 of those.
Okay, so you'd have been close there. There's also a series that I thought of for you that I know you have not read, and that is the Eric Carter series, and that is also set in Los Angeles. And all these folks are urban fantasy series. And the reason why I had thought these for John was not only because I thought he'd like these books, but as a booktuber, you are constantly being thrown big tomes of material that not only take a long time to read, but they take a lot of brain power to really, if you're going to read it and talk about it, you got to devote a little bit of focus to it. So some of these urban fantasy series are great popcorn reads. And it's like that to me is Sandman Slim. Sure, it'll give you something to think about. It's not just totally mindless, B-movie stuff, but it's not dense where it's so thought-provoking you can't sleep at night because you're wondering how Sandman Slim, moves through the world with the doors of the key of the 13 doors. That's not keeping. It's cool, but it's not keeping you up at night.
But it is cool.
It is cool though. So
Yeah.
I thought about the Eric Carter series because that is set in Los Angeles. So it would have some similar things atmospherically for you that would resonate. Like you would know the neighborhoods that Eric Carter is. Eric Carter is one of the very few necromancers. He's a human necromancer, which I know you're a horror guy. So I was like, okay, that's going to check a box for John as well. He suffers no BS, so that's gonna check a box for John. And in fact, as I was doing this kind of ranking up, he's even on the crazier, higher scale than Sandman Slim.
Oh, really?
In terms of an anti-hero, he's about as anti-hero without going full-on villain as you get.
Okay.
So,
who wrote this? Is this Johan?
No, this is Stephen Blackmore.
Stephen Blackmore. Okay. Because there's
Stephen
another series that sounds like that I've almost picked up a time or two.
Yes. So the first book is called Dead Things. I'd get through, honestly, I would get through Sandman Slim before.
Oh no, I'm all in on this.
Yeah.
No, this is that urban fantasy palate cleanser.
That's right.
High octane adrenaline sorbet that I'm going to want between.
That's right.
Wars of Light and Shadow.
That's right.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a 1 or 2 day read, a couple of days and boom, it's done. It's fun. You had a good time with it. It gives your brain a kind of a reset to get ready for something.
It's fun. How isn't that important, Brian? Don't people sometimes lose sight of that? Or they think sometimes a read should be ghettoized because that's so important, I think, to get those kinds of reads in.
There's no doubt about it. I mean, I have found since my journey getting started as a booktuber, I think it's going to be 9 months next week or this week.
Yeah.
Actually, wait a minute. Oh my God, it's 9 months today.
Congratulations. Look at this.
Oh my God. I have a baby.
You had a BookTube baby with me today.
Right here on your show.
Yeah.
And Jakob is nowhere around to catch it.
He'll midwife the whole thing together later.
He'll midwife it in post.
Yeah, that's exactly what's going to happen.
Fix this child in post. Anyway, so I never thought I would be reading some books that I do that are brain drainers that again, they're great books like Cloud Atlas. Like I know you enjoy that book a lot.
Love that.
But it's a heavy thought book.
It's one of those that you kind of have to sit down a time or two and go, now wait a minute, how does this all,
Right. And nobody's reading Cloud Atlas because it's super fun. No. I mean, it's a good book. There's no doubt. It's probably going to make my top 10 books of the year list. I mean,
that's awesome.
At the way things are going. It's like the same with like something like Shogun, right? I love Shogun. It's my leading book of the year candidate right now. But nobody reads Shogun going, oh, this is going to be a blast, right? It's like, I want to read Shogun. I want to know what the story is about. I've heard so many good things. Sandman Slim or Joe Ledger, these are just fun books. And I think that as booktubers, it's so vital, that we continue to sprinkle these in on top of some of these heavier reads because it makes the heavier reads more fun to do and it becomes less work. It's not like we're paid book reviewers, right? Where the New York Times is sending John and I, tons of cash to read the hardest books that we can find, right? It's like we read these difficult books because there's a part of it of FOMO where we know that there's all these other people on BookTube that talk about these books and we want to know what the heck they're talking about.
And we do love it. We love the journey, I think. I just think you got to vary up the flavors, right? You need that buffet going. Yeah.
You got to have dessert sometime. Yeah. You can't just have a protein bar every single meal. Yeah. Because you're trying to, increase your gains at the gym, so to speak. And, like Johnny Wirtz, great example. I love To Ride Hell's Chasm, but if every single book I read was To Ride Hell's Chasm, I'd burn out pretty quick.
Well, and if every single book was that kind of lyrical, beautiful, thought-provoking prose in every line, To Ride Hell's Chasm is no longer singular or different, right?
That's right. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. You couldn't do it. It's like watching every game and expecting Michael Jordan to be on, the court. Yeah, it's not going to happen. There's one Michael Jordan. So,
absolutely.
But yeah, so I totally think you're right that these fun books are really vital, and luckily for us, these fun books generally revolve around some kind of a hero or an anti-hero that we can get behind and actively root for. Yeah. Because that's the fun in this, right? I mean, it's not just reading the fun descriptions. We are rooting for a character. And sometimes we get that in fantasy and sometimes we don't. I don't recall myself ever actively rooting for Frodo, the way that I'm rooting for Joe Ledger, in a hallway with, 200 zombies coming at him and he's almost out of ammunition.
That's interesting. That's interesting to think about that. Yeah. I wonder if it's because the urban part of it fits in firmly in our world, so it gives us just enough of a context.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that's exactly it. I mean, and that's why I'm drawn to so much urban fantasy. When I first started my channel, I had met Tori Tekken and we were on a readathon team together on a Discord. And when I was explaining, hey, I might do a channel, she said, what kind of channel would you do? And at the time I said, I think I'm going to do one mostly based on urban fantasy because I don't see a lot of the booktubers that I watch talking about it. I've since kind of made that a blend into what I do. It's not the entire focus, obviously. But yeah, I think that's, you hit the nail on the head because it's relatable to us and it's in our world. We can actively root for somebody because we can sort of see ourselves closer in their shoes than we can marching to Mount Doom, with Samwise Gamgee. But I don't recall ever going, come on, Frodo, you got this. Don't give up on me now, Frodo. It was more of a passive read than an active read.
Yeah. I had a plan B for you, and I think I'm going to send my plan B to you. I think
cool. I'll read it.
I think I'm going to send it. It's look, it's the Repairman Jack series. It's written by F. Paul Wilson.
Okay, I've never heard of it.
Okay, get this. Tell me how close to zero I bat again.
Yeah.
There's an urban mercenary. He calls himself a repairman. He puts a classified ad out. If you have something that needs fixing,
you got to call the repairman.
You call Repairman Jack. And because maybe you found yourself in a situation where I got myself in a bit of a lurch here. I had to borrow money from these guys, and I probably shouldn't have.
I need
now I'm in trouble, right?
Yeah, I need this.
So I call Repairman Jack to fix it because I can't go to the police, right?
Right. Yeah.
So Repairman Jack, complete urban mercenary, completely off the grid. You wouldn't look at him twice if he walks by you. This all happens on the streets of New York City.
I'm there. Done.
Now,
sold.
What he comes to find out through this series of books is that he is the last surviving knight errant that stands between humanity and the cosmic weirdness that is trying to break through.
Oh, cool. Awesome. I'm into this. Yeah, absolutely. That it starts, that's urban fantasy. I mean, that is a guy in our neighborhood that all of a sudden is confronted with forces beyond our known existence. I am all in on that. Absolutely. Right. I will happily read that book, but I'm also continuing with Joe Ledger because, I mean, I would behind the scenes be telling you, John, thanks for the book, but it just really wasn't my bag, right? I legit, I 4-starred this on Goodreads, and I generally don't star anything before I've had a chance to talk about it on my channel because I'd like our viewers or the viewers of BellTube to see what I thought of the book before I just publicly post a star rating. 5 stars for me are damn near impossible to get. They have to be either a masterwork or something that has affected me so profoundly. I think I've only given 3 5-stars out this year to Ride Hell's Chasm, Shogun, and Cloud Atlas. I think that's it. So it's like nobody gets a 5 from me, but a 4 is really good.
That's
4
pretty good.
is like 4 is absolutely, hey, this is, and it sucks too because when we have friends that are authors, it's like, I'll give them like a 4.5 and round up to 5 on Goodreads because I don't want to tank their average rating just because of my stupid system. Because unless people watch the channel, which nobody does, they wouldn't know that I don't give 5 stars, unless it's moved me in such a way.
I end up rounding up a lot because you can't do quarters and halves on Goodreads. So I end up rounding up to 5 quite a bit because it's like, I mean, it's a little over a 4 for me, but what do I do? That kind of, and I'm a softie.
Right.
I'm just,
and you want, other artists, like yourself to experience success.
Yeah.
And, if you don't like the book, you probably won't rate it. Like, I don't see you putting in 1-star and 2-star reviews into Goodreads. I can see you just not read.
Honestly, I would be honest. I would be honest if I came across that. But the beauty with BookTube is that I'm going off for recommendations. That doesn't happen to me anymore. It really doesn't.
Yeah, same here. The last time I read a book that the closest that I got to any of that was when I did the DNF challenge back in January, where all those BookTubers sent me books that they quit on, and I was going to read them just to see why they quit or if I liked them. And there's a couple of clunkers in there for sure, but that's as close as I've been. And those are BookTubers that are saying, don't read these. So
yeah. So you leaned in and took one for the team on that one.
Absolutely.
I'm gonna send you the Tomb, which is book one of Repairman Jack.
I'm gonna read it.
As all these things, it gets better as it goes on. So don't entirely judge it by book one. You were so kind. You already sent me book 2 of this. So I'm absolutely gonna.
I had to, not because we're friends, but because there's zombies in it.
Oh, so dude, you know what? Here's the thing, Brian. You know just the highway to my heart. You just know exactly where to go.
Right, absolutely. I was like, all right, wait. The second, John likes the book enough. The second book's got zombies. I can't leave him hanging with just book 1. And the nice thing is like sometimes I know for me, I won't go out and buy these popcorn books by myself, just on my own to have them ready for when I need them. So it's great when they're already there. To just grab hold of because like you said, Joe Ledger for me came at the exact perfect time that I had been reading. I've been reading Sun Eater at such a rapid pace, 1 a month for the last 6 months. That's how I got to current in the Sun Eater. Malaz and I just started Dead House Gates, yesterday. And, we talked about Ride Hell's Chasm and Cloud Atlas and Shogun. And I mean, these are some heavy stuff. So having a great anti-hero or a hero to just jump and root for.
There you go, man.
It makes it such a viscerally fun experience that, I will be your Huckleberry. I will send you popcorn. I will do it. Yeah, dude. Same back
so
at
this bromance is going to keep going. There's no way it's going to stop. You and I, BFF.
Absolutely, brother, man. I mean, we understand each other, I think, so well because we grew up in a time that is so different than it is right now. I mean, our paths are very different in the sense that you've gone off and done family. I have gone off and done not family. Basically the opposite of family.
I'm just going to call it not family.
Yeah. Right. So, but the hit, I mean, when you can talk about Zork, okay, as a computer game, and I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah. There's a certain sense of, commonality and familiarity. And this is a guy that when you say I was the brother dropped off in the North, you're right, because you're somebody that we would have hung out for sure because we got the same interests. Yeah. I wouldn't have been on the football field with you. Yeah. But I would have.
No, but we'd have hung out after because we would have been reading the same stuff. So after
and I would have had the awesome Atari system. So you'd have been over playing Atari. Exactly. There's no doubt, dude. Yeah. After football, you're coming over for Atari football. Absolutely. Which is just a disaster of itself. But
so bad.
Terrible.
So bad. One great game on Atari, Breakout. That was my game. I used to love Breakout.
Breakout was cool. Yeah. Breakout was pretty cool. Nobody has any idea what we're talking about right now.
Everyone right now, we've lost the entire audience because they're all Googling Breakout and Zork.
Right? And Atari 2600. They might know that. Yeah.
Brian, as always, my friend, thank you so much. I can't wait for us to hang out again. I'm going to send you book 1 from F. Paul Wilson.
Awesome. I will read it.
Coming your way, and we will get together again. Actually, we'll get together tomorrow night. No, you're not part of
I'm not on tomorrow.
You're not on that tomorrow.
No,
I'm not soon with the Ordinary Grace, though.
We are. We're going to be Quilluminatiing it up with, and you know what the best part about Quilluminati is now everybody's saying it correctly. It took about 2 months, and now even when I watched Mike say it properly like 3 times in a row the other day, I was like, okay,
we made it.
I mean, Philip was never an issue. He was always going to be.
We knew we had Philip. But I mean, it's like, it's like, this is what making it feels like. People are getting Quilluminati right.
Yeah, I mean, no, so we'll be on that together. And I still, even though I'm not on your Bound of the Broken read along, I'm still going to be in the chat because I am current with all of that. I've read everything up through War and Ruin. I give Mike props for being able to be on that show because honestly, I couldn't remember what happens between books 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever. That cast gets huge. The books get giant.
A lot
Forget
happens. A lot happens. War and Ruin is next month for me, and that thing is massive.
Yeah, it'll read so fast though. It'll read.
Yeah, that's what I hear.
It'll read 3 times faster. It'll read for you. I predict like a 500-page book.
Wow.
So,
okay.
So for you, I think you'll read it in a week.
Wow. Okay.
I don't think it'll take you any longer than a week. Maybe not even that. We'll flies.
We'll see what happens. I'm excited to get to it. Brian, my friend, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me. This is awesome.
And talk about heroes, and we're going to do it again.
For sure. Count on me. All right. Thanks everybody for watching.
Thanks so much. You know what? I should probably thank these amazing people because this isn't a live. I'm confused. This felt like a live. But I'm going to go ahead and thank these amazing people that help us do everything here. They keep the lights on. They make decisions because we're not that great at it. All the way up to taking over our channel and getting their content here once a month. If this interests you, down there, if you're able and interested, down there in the descriptions is our Patreon. Check it all out. And for the rest of you, hey, if you came here because of Brian, and who wouldn't, this
I wouldn't.
If you came here because of Brian and she's like, this guy's all right. I think, hit that thumbs up button for us. That helps us do everything, helps us grow the channel. Leave me a comment. I love comments. I'm going to answer them as quickly as humanly possible. It's the whole reason why we started this channel. And if you haven't subscribed here and you want to, boop,
oh my God,
takes no time. Hit that button. It does. And it's a scientific fact. It will give you a tingle.
I have to say, I subscribed to your channel like about maybe 9 or 10 months ago. I'm still tingling.
Look, I've had people feel like, is there a spider in my pants? What's going on? I have a feeling something's not right. If they hit that subscribe button, that's what it is.
You know what the best part about the subscribe tingle conversation is? Jacob is not here to interrupt it. He's somewhere in the universe. He knows. He knows.
He can feel it. He can feel it. This has
gone so far off the rails. He's just.
I don't know why he's so against science. I don't know why he won't accept science.
It's kids today, John.
It's kids today, man. It's absolutely.
We have to end this with 2 old men shaking their hands.
Look, I'm going to go out front right now. I'm going to get the garden hose. I'm going to spray it on some kid on my front lawn because it's kids today.
That's right.
Thank you, Brian. Thanks for everyone that watched.
Thank you for having me.
We will see you guys soon.